to think like an abstract painter. Abstract painting is all about taking a risk and allowing yourself to go with the flow and problem solve as you move through your painting journey. This is why I like to start with a wet background whenever I'm abstract painting. It gives this extra risk of things happening on the canvas that I might not be able to control or predict. Here I'm also using a high flow acrylic paint or a watercolor, which will help add to that extra unpredictability that I'm looking for. The first layer of your abstract painting is a complete free fall, as there's nothing to go off of yet, so really allow yourself to let go and have fun with it. Once that first layer is completely dry, I'm ready to go in with some white accents. For this, I'm using some more opaque acrylic paint to really make all of these lines, dots, and shapes pop. I'm looking to make shapes and lines that naturally follow the form of all of these more free-flow abstract marks that I've already made in the background. Think of them as a response to the shapes, lines, and shadows already created on the canvas. There's no rule, rhyme, or reason to this, just follow your gut and think of balance. After all of those white marks are dry, I rehydrate my canvas and wipe any excess water off. This allows me to go back in with another thin glaze of high flow acrylic paint. One of the many ways that you can experiment in your abstract painting is by working with different opacity levels. Transparent layers layered on top of each other will change the color in certain areas, like you're putting a filter over an image, whereas adding opaque colors are going to completely disrupt any color underneath them and replace that area with a pure, saturated version of whatever opaque color you're using. Think the more opaque, the more bold. I like to use white when I'm putting in any opaque marks because when I glaze on top of them again with any thin, transparent paint, it will completely change the color of those white marks to whatever my glaze is, whereas all of the colors in the background will change with the glaze too. A little tip when working with glazes is to not let them get too dark too soon. The more transparent colors you layer on top of each other, the darker everything gets in value. Keeping things light will give you more freedom to make certain areas darker, which is just another fun way to create variation in your abstract landscape. As I'm going back and forth between adding in color and adding in white, I'm making decisions about what kinds of marks I want to make based off of balancing a few different factors. I'm thinking about a balance between soft edges and hard edges, rounded marks and linear marks, thin lines versus thick lines, outlines versus filled-in shapes, transparent versus opaque, and more. Making a balance between all of these different characteristics in your mark making is going to create what we call variation. Variation and balance go hand in hand for helping make a painting visually stimulating. For example, balance is created by adding similar shapes in different areas of the painting, making your brain recognize repeated patterns. But as much as our brain loves patterns, it gets bored really easily if the patterns are too similar to one another. And that's where we bring in variation. By slightly changing each aspect of your painting as you repeat it based off of the edge quality, linear, roundness, etc., you create a beautifully varying balance between all marks on your painting, leaving you with a composition full of interesting marks that all look like they're having a conversation with each other. An abstract painting is all about telling a story.